Welcome to the Awakened Goddess Show, your source for inspiration, wisdom, and personal discovery. The place to learn from a diverse mix of mentors, metaphysical experts, spiritual leaders, and best-selling authors from around the world. I'm Angela Wilkinson, intuitive coach and founder of the Awakened Goddess Academy. Join me as I explore the minds of my masterful guests while they share powerful insights and easy-to-use tools you can start using right away. Now, let's tap into the energy of the Awakened Goddess and be enlightened by today's guest. Shannon Townsend is the Get Shit Done coach. She fell into coaching as a natural extension of all her experiences as a stage manager, a sign language interpreter, a workshop leader, and office girl, connecting with people as they try and make sense of everything that's happening in their lives. Now she works one-on-one and in small groups to take online business owners through the demands of mastering life, email funnels, sales pages, and maintaining relationships in the easiest way possible. She's the queen of taking breaks, delegating, and providing support for people with a calling bigger than they can wrap their head around. Welcome to this episode of the Awakened Goddess Show, where we co-create powerful conscious conversations on the leading edge. Today I have Shannon joining me today, and we're going to be talking about what to do when you feel overwhelmed, how to stop procrastinating, and how to get shit done. So welcome, Shannon.
Yes, happy to be here.
Yeah, this is actually a much more practical subject than we usually have on the show. So I am looking forward to this conversation because I know that there are so many people, including myself, that are overwhelmed and stretched to the max, trying to do it all, and are just not keeping it all together.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, so let's, I'm curious, how did you even become the Get Shit Done coach?
Like most really powerful things in my life, I fell into it. I was helping a friend set up her practice, and I had been working with her for about 6 months every week, just walking her through what I felt was normal stuff. How do you set up a business? How do you create flyers? How do you do just things that come very, very naturally to me? And she was doing it for a community that I love and adore. And we're sitting in her office. We had just painted like the day before. It might have even been that afternoon. And I was like, how does it feel to be like, this is real. We're in your space. You have a practice. Your doors are open. And she was like, it feels so good. And we start talking, and she says, and I want you to be a life coach out of my office. And I was like, great. What's that?
What's that?
And like, I'm totally in. I have no idea what you're talking about. And so I did a little bit of research. I took a course that outlined the differences between all of these different areas and ways to, support people in life. And I was like, oh, coaching, that's the way for me. Be in conversation with people for a living, sign me up. And it just snowballed from there. It feels like a really long time, but actually things have grown very, very quickly, very, very easily, which is always nice. Mm-hmm. And now I'm here talking to you, being like, yeah, this is what I do for a living. Welcome to my world.
Yeah. And I can only imagine, like, when people find out that there are people like you who exist, that people are just going to be knocking down your door, because we all really can use the support. And I mentioned as I was introing you about the overwhelm that we so easily can get wrapped up into. So let's talk about, where does that come from? Why do we get overwhelmed? And why do we think we have to do it all?
Well, so there are so many answers. And really, the reason we get overwhelmed and why we think we have to do it all is because we have this horrible thing called comparisonitis. And it's not just a disease or a sickness that implies maybe you can get over it. No, it's insidious. It's been culturalized. It's the expectation. And we run around comparing our blooper reel of our life to everyone else's highlight reel. And so we get stuck in this place of, I'm so overwhelmed. I have this huge, massive calling. And the longer it takes us to get there and to manifest it and pull it into reality and start living it, the worse and worse and worse and smaller and smaller and smaller we feel.
Mm-hmm.
And really, the only way to get out of that, in my very, very biased opinion, is to have support, to show up, and to really allow that support to help you. Because a lot of times we go, oh, I've got support, and then we don't let people help us. Or we have the spouse who's like, I'm there for you, babe. And then because we don't know what to be there for, we're like, well, he's not helpful. You're like, well, he doesn't know what you need.
Right.
So we get overwhelmed because we don't have the support. We have these massive, massive callings, and they feel almost impossible. That's how you know it's really good, when you're like, I have no idea how I'm going to do that. Ah. So our callings require us to grow into a bigger, better, larger than life version of ourselves. And that can be a really intimidating process. And then because we're busy comparing ourselves, we think we have to do it all by ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just not the case. Anyone who's done anything worthwhile had an army of support. As the GSD coach, I have a small army of people who support me all the time. I have coaches in my life. I have my very own, and I have two of them actually. I have a biz bestie who does very, very similar things to me. And then I have my coach who's constantly like, okay, what's next? What are we doing? What are we building into? What are we growing into? Because I see systems and support and the big picture so easily. But when it comes to myself, I'm like, yeah, I have no idea what to do. And they're there to always support me, to always pull me into my biggest and best self. And on top of that, and what's the most important thing to me, is they're a safe place to share my wins. We talk a lot about, you have to have somebody safe to commiserate with and tell your scary stories. I think even more important than that is someone I can go to and be like, oh my gosh, I made 17 cents today. And they can be like, yes,
Yeah.
so excited for you. You remember you made 4 cents yesterday. You're over 20 cents in the last 2 days. Way to go.
Mm-hmm.
And if I went to other people in my life, they'd be like, really? 17 cents? What's that going to do for you? And you're like,
Right.
that's not the point. The point is I have it. It's mine. I created that. I pulled it out of thin air.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have those people in my life, and that's where you grow. That's where your influence expands. That's how you change the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like how you talk about how your vision or your mission really requires you to step in and grow into that space. And I think we're all in an evolution process, all growing until the day we die. I mean, that's part of the journey, and it's not comfortable usually. And I think that, like, speaking for myself, with the vision of the show, it's really big. And I have noticed that when I first got the vision of the show, it felt huge and scary, and I had no idea how I was going to do it. So I just started stepping in, and the more and more, it's become more and more comfortable, and it feels like, yeah, it's doable. And then there's the other part that when we look at the actual things that need to happen to manifest that into physical form. And then I think for me, that's where the overwhelming piece comes in, because it seems like every chunk then has a million little pieces, and then all of those have another, everything leads to something else. And so let's talk about this, because I know in some way we can create things to do that aren't really what we need to be focusing on versus those real big things that we should be doing. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So how do you tell the difference between the two? That's the $1 million question. And we're so good at finding all of those little million things to do. And really the only way you figure out what needs to happen, in my opinion, is when you take a break. Ease requires implementation time. So when I find myself being busy, like I know this big thing's out there. But I could do this instead. Oh, well, the dishes do need to get done. So
That's
here, let
right.
me do the dishes. My husband will probably laugh when he hears that. Like, you never do the dishes. But It's because our calling is calling us into action. It's calling us into creating. And we're energetic bodies. And so we feel the pull to be in action. And then our brain kicks in and goes, I don't want to be in this big action. That's too much. I don't know where it leads. But I do know that if I load the dishwasher, I'll have clean dishes.
Mm-hmm.
That's so much more clear to me. So we get pulled into action, so then we find ourselves doing other things. And it's when you take a moment to take a break, an intentional break. Like, I've got a million things to do and I keep trying to do the dishes. I'm just going to sit here for a little bit. And there's so many options for that, sitting here for a little bit. You can write on paper and brain dump everything that's going on, every little thought you have, to create that white space. And a deep breath. You can do your practice. You can do yoga. You can do deep breathing. You can do so many things, because as opposed to, you go, and then you're like, brain dead. And that's that forced break where your body and your energy and everything finally says, stop.
Yeah, I'm
Stop.
done.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, we're in that space of like, okay, well, I have to be done for the next 3 months. Like, I can't, there's no more left. There will never be any more again. I'm going to go on hiatus for, 3 months, which is normal when you don't know how to integrate the breaks. You don't know how to integrate the pauses. You don't know how to every day say, why is this so hard? Mm-hmm. Okay. And your breaks don't have to be, if you have a spiritual practice, go do it. Do whatever you need to do. And then sometimes you need to go and sit in front of Netflix and let somebody else yammer at you for a little bit and go, oh,
Yeah.
that's fun. It just, I love my Netflix,
Yeah.
but I have it as, I call them approved break activities. I have a list of things that when I feel overwhelmed or spacey, or I'm finding myself doing a bunch of other things, I just go to this list and I go, okay, okay, yeah, I'm going to go do this. And sometimes it is doing the dishes, because usually the dishes need to be done. Mm-hmm. Or it's walk to the mailbox and grab my mail, or watch a couple episodes on Netflix. Mm-hmm. So that way I can give myself that time to integrate, because when you're called into something bigger, you and your people know this, you have to have time to integrate, to have it like kind of fit back into your body. And you have to do that with breaks. And if you're doing anything remotely businessy, to me, it's even more mandatory. You have to take that time to integrate, to take a break.
That's so true. And Shannon, quite frankly, I know this, but I don't. I'm the worst person. Because it's like almost momentum starts getting built. And even if it's out of excitement, then sometimes that excitement, like, it's almost like an adrenaline rush where I'm like going, and I have no problem. I'm not a procrastinator. So I just keep in action, and I have the hardest time because I want to get everything done. I want to get the next thing done. I want to get caught up, that I have the hardest time stopping. It's like I think of a little child that wants to see everything and do everything and play and doesn't want to take their nap.
Yeah. So here's the thing. You have to make breaks work for you. A break doesn't mean a 3-month hiatus. It doesn't even have to mean a 3-minute hiatus. One of my favorite break activities is blinking. It's really, really, it's like, I teach people how to blink. So especially if you do, because with the show and everything that you're creating in your online presence, you spend a lot of time in front of a screen. Mm-hmm. And they've done research that shows that when you look at a screen, you don't blink as often. And this is what it does to your body. It tells your body that, hey, I'm dehydrated, I'm tired. It wears you down because you're not blinking as often. So your eyeballs dry out. And so then it just sends all of these weird signals to your brain, and it kind of messes with your like body chemistry. So one thing that you can do, and I tell people all the time, is blink. And the way that works is, your computer screen is, probably this far away from you. So, not very far. Maybe it's a little bit farther. What you do is you pick a spot, at least 15 feet away from you.
Hmm.
So way away, and you look at this spot, and then you just blink. You blink as many times as you can for like 30 seconds. Blink, 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 blink. And
I'm
you
doing it
just
now.
do that. Right, yeah. You do that, and it helps your eyes pull back and relax into a more natural state because we're looking at something so close to us. It messes with those muscles and it dries out our eyeballs. And you do something like that, that's going to recharge your energy and it's going to give you a moment to think about what you need to do next. And it's going to make you feel better because you know, when a kid skips his nap, plays, he's so worn out and so cranky that his effectiveness at getting what he wants and being cute significantly decreases.
Right. Not cute
Significantly.
anymore.
So cute anymore. So that's one of those things that I do. I'm really lucky in that anywhere I have a computer, I have spots in my house where I can look at them. And when I look around, sometimes I see them. I'm like, oh, wait, blink, 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 blink. Okay, feel better. And then that usually reminds me to get up and refill my water bottle and
Hmm.
then get up and go pee and do all of these other things. And what I find, especially for people who are not procrastinators, which in my world is very rare, is relabeling the activities that you're normally going to do as breaks. So when you refill your water bottle, when you get that second cup of coffee, when you get up and go to use the restroom, you're like, I'm taking a break.
Yeah. And I think
And
the
then,
breathing part is so important because I think too when we're in that adrenaline fueled state, we do have a tendency to not breathe. We hold our breath and
mhm,
yeah.
totally. So it doesn't have to be anything big. You can just relabel simple activities as breaks, and it does really good things for your brain. Because then your brain's like, oh, look how effective I was. And I took a break. I am a rock star.
So let's talk about the idea of being in action versus being in flow. Because, there's kind of like the two, like almost the masculine and feminine approach, ways of doing it.
Right. So I have this vendetta against what I call the hustle and the flow. I think those are extremes, right? So you got the hustle, I'm going to go, go, go. I'm going to obliterate everything in my path. And then you have the flow of like, well, I'm just going to allow it. And I say this with lots of love. I'm going to allow it and I'm going to sit here on my lotus leaf and it will appear. Bluebirds will bring it to me if it's meant to be. Right. And I know no one lives in that world. No one actually does that. But when we pull ourselves in one direction or the other, it stops us from being in action that actually works.
Hmm.
It's no longer aligned. We're trying to fit into this mold of someone who lets it all flow or this someone who's out there pounding the pavement. How about instead you take a break and you look at what's in front of you and feel into what actually feels good? What's the easiest thing you can do right now when you're feeling overwhelmed? Sometimes it's take a break. Sometimes it's get up and move. Sometimes it's doing that email that you've been avoiding for a really long time because it's
Hmm.
taking up so much brain space. And so I don't want you to hustle and I don't necessarily want you to always be in flow because a lot of us spend time looking for flow. We're not in flow. We're
Hmm.
looking for the hustle. We're not hustling. So instead, take a break, find the easiest thing to do, and then let that compound and build your momentum because the easiest thing is in flow. The easiest thing does pull in those opportunities like somebody who hustles. All of that comes to you and you're able to integrate it easier. You're able to see opportunities better and you're going to be much, much happier with how your day plays out because you're not trying to find this extreme.
Hmm.
You're just allowing it to happen.
Hmm. Yeah, and this interview is a perfect example of that on
Good.
your side because I put out a call. I was looking for something specific, and well, I'll let you tell your side of the story.
So I see things all the time. You know, I'm in online business. You see calls for things all the time, and I usually glaze over them. And yours stuck out to me, like in the best way. Like it popped up. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what she has to say. Oh, you need a spot. Oh, you need it relatively quickly, within the next 72 hours. And I was like, okay. So I was like, hey, this is what I do. Here's my website. Like, And I loved what you put in your thing of, you know, this is a really great manifesting opportunity. And I was like, oh, God, I love her. Like, most people are not going to think about, oh, I need to fill this spot as a manifesting opportunity for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, that's so cool. So I threw my information on there and I walked away. And normally I would be like, oh, I hope they call, or I hope I get picked, or I'm never going to get picked. I saw the other names. I'm not at that level. I just got up and walked away.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it was an hour or two later, I saw, you know, I've made my choice, and I'll be contacting that person. And I was like, so cool. And I remember being like, have a totally happy, aligned interview. And like 30 seconds later, bing, here's a message. And I was
Right.
like, oh my gosh, I'm a totally aligned interview.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so cool. And it was seriously the easiest thing I've ever done. Just there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because, and here's the funny thing, is I had the opportunity to do several things that day. And they felt too much like hustle, and they felt too much like waiting for flow to happen. And I didn't do any of them. I was just hanging out with my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it showed up. So
Yeah.
I think it's pretty magical.
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect example of how when we're in alignment and we follow those hits of inspiration or intuition, and instead of the things that we think we need to do, all the XYZ tasks that, you know, because our ego, we have this idea that these specific things lead to this result. And so you could have been like someone that contacted me through my website, pitched me this thing, and then, you know, then that would have been like more of the hustle. And then you could have seen the post and you could have just not really done anything and just...
Or hoped you reached out to me. If it's, maybe she'll reach out to me. Of the hordes of people on the internet, maybe she'll reach out to me. And things like that do happen. But you're right. It was totally aligned. It was the way it needed to be.
Yeah. And I like to highlight things like this for the viewers, that because sometimes we miss how easy it can be. Yeah. I know for many, many years I thought things had to be hard. In fact, I would make things hard. Yeah. And I wouldn't even know that I would make them hard because I would put all of these limitations or things. It was like I was requiring myself to jump over all these hoops or through all these hoops to get to the end result that I wanted. And so, yeah, living in the flow but still taking inspired action is where the magic happens, like you say.
Yeah, that inspired action is so important. People look for the inspiration and then they don't have the action. Mm-hmm. And that's your problem. There's inspiration fodder everywhere. Everywhere. You can be inspired everywhere. You can find inspiration. But until you take action on that, and that's really what my focus is as the GSD coach, like, right, you're inspired, you're ready. You're ready to do something about it. But life is what's getting in your way. And if we don't deal with life as it happens, so we set these goals, a lot of times, generally what happens when people work with me, it's like, okay, what are your plans? We create the implementation plan. And then it's the management of that implementation plan that really needs that support. So you have all of these goals that are way out here. They're big, they're life-changing, they're terrifying, they're really exciting, right? And then life shows up over and over and over and over and over again. And if you don't deal with these things as they come up, you're just going to keep aiming at this and you're never going to get through to it because you're pretending like these things aren't existing, or, oh, I don't want to give it my time and attention. Amen. But you do have to deal with them. And usually these are the opportunities that you need to get to your end point. And so it's that having someone else outside of the situation to be like, no, this opportunity is actually really great. Or maybe if you tried like this, hey, you only have $80 in your bank account, but you have a really good business. Hey, that $80 is your real life. What are we going to do about it? Oh, we're going to take this next thing where we talked about funnels and flash sales and implement it with your life. And now there's that $1,000 in your bank account in 48 hours that you needed to keep going towards that big that big calling, which you're there
Mm-hmm.
for. But if we only focused on making that $1,000, we wouldn't have seen the opportunity as it presented itself.
Yeah. Yeah, so that brings up another question that I have. I want to dive deep into this systems piece because until we have really good systems, we end up doing the same thing over and over again and not effectively. So let's talk about systems because I know that there are a few systems I could probably implement in my business to help things be managed much more easily.
So the first system I want to talk about and I encourage everyone to have a scheduling system. If you feel that you are a busy person, then you need to have I I feel an online calendar, especially if you do anything where people are not like 4 feet away from you,
Mm-hmm.
is have an online calendar where you can set up time, okay, and different appointment types. Like this is coffee. I have a virtual coffee date with Shannon. It's a half an hour, and I can only do it during certain times. People want to hang out. They want to talk about something. Sure, here you go. Find a time that works. And people love it.
Mm-hmm.
People love that I have those kind of boundaries because it makes it really easy for them to have boundaries, which helps manage my overwhelm and it significantly decreases their overwhelm because it's not this back and forth of like, oh, well, 4 p.m. Eastern. Oh, but 4:15. If I knew I had the option of 10:25, I would have taken that because it fits perfectly into my schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an easy system. There are all kinds of options out there. I really like Calendly.
That's what I use, yeah.
I
That's
love
great.
it. $10 a month, and I can have a bajillion different kinds of appointment types. And it's easy because it emails me, it emails them. It's the easiest
Mm-hmm.
thing in the world. And I can go in and set it up, and I'm done. So calendars are a great system to have. And then because I can sync it to my phone, like it just, unless it imported it directly into my brain, it doesn't get any easier. And then another one that I love is approved break activities. So like I said, I have a list of activities that I can go to whenever I want and be like, I need to take a break. I need to be doing something else. So I had one for a really long time and now I just know it, so I don't need it as much. But I had a list of approved break activities that were more business-like. So like respond to an email, update Facebook or something like that. So I could stop whatever I was doing and then still be productive in a business sense, but it was something different and it had time limits set to it. So I wasn't allowed to be on Facebook until I felt satisfied because that's impossible.
Right.
I was allowed to be on Facebook for 15 minutes, or I was allowed to play in my email for 10 minutes, that sort of thing. And then I have more project-based systems. And my absolute favorite, is the sticky note system. And it's because I organize my life with sticky notes. Like I've got
I love
piles.
sticky notes. Sticky notes and office supplies. I've always had this weird obsession with office supplies. It's weird.
Oh, I like every year when it's back to school season, I'm like, I just want to buy a pack of erasers and a new folder. Like, but I don't need them because I've been doing that for the last 30 gajillion years, right?
Yeah.
So I use the sticky note system. My whole life is planned and organized using sticky notes. And so I take big projects and it's my organized brain dump. So I have an idea of something I want to do and I literally say, okay, what does that take? And for every thought I have, it goes on its own sticky note. Boom, boom, boom. And it's a really messy system at first. So a lot of people come to me because they want clarity and ease and they don't want the visual noise like Trello and Basecamp because you can see everything all at once. I don't care for those systems. I know some people love them, but I don't because I find it visually overwhelming. So in the creation process of what do I want to do? What are all the different pieces? What are all the thoughts I have around that? That's very messy. But then I can take all of that, put it into a stack and organize it. And then all I have to do when I work on this project is pull out this little stack of sticky notes, which, sometimes is thick and sometimes not. And I use my sticky notes to break everything down into its most basic component parts. I break down, people talk about writing emails. Writing an email on the surface sounds really simple, really straightforward. Oh my goodness, no. You have to brainstorm subject lines. You have to figure out the image you're going to put in the email. You have to figure out the copy, which is a whole nother beast. Then you have to decide when you're going to send it. That's just 4 things off the top of my head, which a single email can take you an hour, 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
But if all I have to do, I know an email is coming, it needs to go out next week, and I want to do something productive, I can brainstorm subject line ideas. And then I'm like, oh, cool. That's one less thing I have to do later. I took like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's done.
Yeah.
And I can set it aside. And then later, when I find myself with 4 minutes, maybe I brainstorm like, okay, what kind of image thing do I want to go with that? Or what does it tie into? Okay, I kind of like this idea. Put that down and move on. So that way, when I go to actually write the email, I have all of the component parts done. All I have to do is actually write the email. Pull everything together, put it in, and I can write an email in 5 minutes. Because I did all of the base work. And it's those repeatable systems that, when you first start out, you need a sticky note system. And then after that, you can have a checklist of like, these are the things I need to do. So then they become internalized, and I no longer get overwhelmed by the thought of sending out emails, or let alone a funnel. My goodness.
Oh, yeah.
Follow-up queries, right? I already know in my brain, I've trained my brain to look for these smaller, less overwhelming pieces and to work at it at my own pace. So that's, and I've got, literally stacks and stacks of them. Actually, this is the other thing that I love to do. I have a notebook.
Nice.
And it's full of sticky notes. So when I have an idea, I brain dump all of the things that I want for that idea. What do I want it to look like? Do I have any idea on price? That sort of thing. I throw it all in my notebook, and then I can set it aside. I don't have to worry about like, oh, I've got to remember that. Oh, I have to do it right now or I'm going to lose momentum. Then I can go into my notebook, pull out all of those sticky notes, spread them out, make a big mess, fill in the gaps, and then organize it and start implementing. And even if I can't implement right away, I have my implementation plan already.
Yeah. And
I can put that aside and then work on it when I have time. It's, I think, the best system in the world.
I bet.
Really?
I bet. Well, I love the creative piece about it, and I can see how you can really play with color too. So I'm curious, do you personally, how do you organize around color?
I don't have anything that I'm really conscious of around color, but I do know that I'm very picky about my sticky notes. Those normal, those plain yellow sticky notes?
Yeah.
Anything that's like the first iteration goes on a yellow sticky note. It goes on a yellow sticky note because I can get tons of those. I have them. Once people know you like sticky notes, you start to get more and better colors. But my basic ideas are in that normal yellow. And then when I'm going through and organizing and making my implementation plan, if I have big categories like emails, website copy, and images, those will go on different colors, and then the subsequent pieces will be in a different color. So that way when I put them on top of each other, because that's the key to the sticky note system, is the creative process is messy, and then the implementation plan is streamlined and not visually overwhelming. I can see, I've got 4 big chunks left in this project really quickly. I can see that by taking a look at my sticky notes. Color isn't something I'm super excited about until I'm in that creative process, and then it's very, very organic. So with my sales funnel, which I just flashed you all.
Yeah, I would love to dive deeper into the sales funnel, because for me personally, that is what stimulates just the overwhelm, and I've so avoided that whole process.
If you want to talk sales funnel, we can totally talk sales funnel, because it's a system. So to me, it's really easy to see that. And so, for example, because I'll show you mine.
For all those spiritual entrepreneurs out there who have not put together their nurture sequence and their sales funnel, let's talk about it.
Okay, so one of the things, so I know that this is also an audio, is I have it is color coded. And I base things, I think, more often on size than color. So I have my smaller ideas on like little 2x2s, and then I have themes and these really long tabbed, bright colored sticky notes. And so what I did was, and I stole this directly from Bushra Azar. She's the queen of persuasion. So connect with her. She'll help you with the persuasion and the copy. But one of the things she talks about, and I'd always kind of had in the back of my head, and she gave it language, was sales funnels and this process are really using your calling to pull people into theirs. So you're using your gifts and you're helping them wherever they are. So a lot of times when we get really excited about an idea, we have like this drive to transform their entire lives, and people are not ready for that transformation 99% of the time. They're just not.
And that's such an esoteric word, too. Transformation. Right. I used to use that all the time. I was a transformational coach. And it's like, what the hell does that mean?
Right? And it comes from the best place, right? Yeah. Like, we want to transform the world. We're really excited about it. People are not ready for that. They're ready to take like half a step. Mm-hmm. So what is a half step towards that transformation, towards that end goal, which then just turns into another goal, which turns into another goal? What does that look like? And so you start people there, and you start them at, a price point where they can see, with this money, I can make this half transformation, and that's going to give me a little bit of relief. And for different people, that's different price points. You're working with millionaires. You try and sell them a $17 product, they're going to be like, no.
Yeah. They're like, that's not going to help me.
Right. Yeah. And that's just because that's their world. Mm-hmm. Now, somebody else is going to be like, I dug through the couch to get my $17. Mm-hmm. And this is going to be a huge step for me. So in thinking about like, that's your sales funnel kind of broadly, in that you're taking people on a journey. You're helping them transition farther and farther and farther into that transformation process. So what I did, and what I help my clients do, is I said, okay, what are all the what is everything that I have already in my head, that I already do, that I haven't labeled? They're just systems and processes that I do with my clients and for myself. What does that look like? Mm-hmm. And I took these bright green tab-looking sticky notes, and I just wrote down everything I could. And I came up with, in under, probably 2 minutes, I had 10 programs, like 10 things. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that this was all sitting in my head. And then the rest of me is like, well, no, duh. This is what you do. Like, okay, great. And then I broke it down into where does that fit in that transition scale? I have a big month-long intensive. That's 100%. We take your program, your project, from 0 to finished in a month. That's not generally where people can start. Mm-hmm. They need smaller steps. They need different things. And so I put everything, all of these 10 programs, into these categories of transformation. And then from there, I said, okay, what goes into all of these different pieces? So for the sticky note system, for example, I wrote down, I can tell you right now.
Get behind the scenes.
behind the scenes. So, I give it a 2-hour masterclass. I could get through the content. I could talk about the process and what it looks like in 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. But that's not what I want for people. I want people there live. Okay, so I'm going to do it on Zoom, and I want it to be interactive. So we need more time. 2 hours feels good. 3 hours would feel like a stretch, because I don't want to let people go early and then have them be like, I paid for a whole nother hour, lady. Mm-hmm. So I really went through and tried to look at it from as many places as I could. What are all the component pieces for this masterclass? And then the last thing I did was, okay, if they're at this level of transformation, I'm giving this, what is the price? And then I wrote down a price. And then I went through and did that for all 10 of my ideas.
Wow.
Yeah, and really I did it in, I couldn't have been more than a half an hour, because it was just rapid fire. It wasn't edited. That's a big thing, is don't edit when you're in the creation process. I yell at people all the time in my master classes, like, don't edit. If you hear yourself say, do laundry 3 different times, right? Do laundry 3 different times on 3 different sticky notes, because that's powerful knowledge. That lets you know what's taking up brain space. Obviously, you should probably figure out something around laundry. Mm-hmm. Or If it's laundry because you've run out of clean undies, go buy yourself more undies and be done with it and move on and clear up that brain space. So that's how I look at it. That's how I use it. And it's a lot of fun. And it's because I have that clearer picture when I'm feeling a little like, where do I want this person I've had an interaction with to fall into this place? Like, what are they ready for? I have something already created. I'm not creating it from scratch over and over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. Even though the sticky note system I could talk about for days, I still come back to this and go, okay, right, this is what I need to put in my copy. Or wait, this is how I want to talk about it. Oh, right, this is the language that was used. And it makes my life significantly easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you can, it's kind of like you said earlier, the brain dump, but then you're doing it in a more chaotic but organized way.
Totally. Because you've got to give yourself the freedom to be messy about it, and then the permission to go through and clean it up, but only after everything is expressed. Mm-hmm. And that's why I love my blank notebooks, because they are full of just ideas, and it's not edited, because, I have notebooks where I took really colorful notes and, and then I don't finish using that notebook. So I've got a million notebooks, and then I didn't do anything with it. With this sticky note, I can physically manipulate things. I have a space where all of these ideas go, and then I want to fit it into my funnel. Hey, I pick it up and I put it into the funnel where it needs to go. And that allows so much freedom and so much ease, because then if I write something and I don't like the way it looks, I'm not like, it's in my really pretty notebook. I'm just like, crumple up, start over.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't like how I wrote that. Yeah. It's great for us who have perfectionist tendencies. Yes. We get to just move things around or throw it away and replace it.
Yeah. Right. And then what's really satisfying to me, and I almost wish I hadn't done this. I get a lot of satisfaction out of taking all of my finished, completed sticky notes and throwing them in the recycle. I have one gal who tears them up like in victory. She's like, I don't have to deal with you again. I know of other people who will burn them. Mm-hmm. Like, it's complete, it's done, I release it, it's out into the world. And then I have someone else who, I don't know if she ever did it, but she talked about putting all of her sticky notes into a shoebox. So that way she could walk around with her box of like accomplished. And I was like, that's such a good idea. Oh, that's funny. Because if I had a box full of accomplished, like, I would take that thing everywhere and be like, no, I've done all of these things this month. That's right. I'm that amazing. And you are too.
So let's talk about how we decide what to get rid of, what to delegate, how to delegate, all that good stuff.
Oh, no one knows how to delegate. So that still to this day surprises me that people don't know how to delegate. And often when I see people, like, if you know you're a bad delegator, rock on, because you are 75% ahead of the pack. So if you know you're a bad delegator, what I want you to do is I want you to write down everything you think you need to manage. And then I want you to write down everything that you want to delegate, take those two lists and swap them out. Because usually what we do is the things we want to delegate we're not capable of doing. We don't have enough mastery over them yet. Mm-hmm. So we find that to be very overwhelming. Yeah. So we're like, I'll just offload it to a VA. And the VA is like, great, except for you didn't give your VA any instructions. They don't know what you need out of it. They're going to interpret it as the best way that they see how, but they aren't holding on to your vision the same way you are. Mm-hmm. So then you're not satisfied with the VA. It turns into a horrible experience. And you're like, see, I can't get rid of anything. And really what you should be doing is delegating things that you can give clear instructions on. So if you have a really clear feel for what you want your social media images to look like, and you have lots of samples that are cohesive, you can go to a good designer and be like, see this? This is my brand. And they'll go, got it, cool. And they can create for you and faster and easier than you ever dreamed possible. You can do the same thing with a really good copy editor. A really good copy writer can take your tone and your message, But most people aren't far enough along to be able to effectively delegate that because they're still not clear on their own voice. So look at your life and what are the things you can delegate. Recently, so exciting, I realized that I spend an obscene amount of time thinking about food. I think about food so much that it is crazy. I don't eat grains, which means that I make everyone's life difficult. And when we go out, I eat salad or a burger with like nothing on it. So I found myself, especially working at home, being like, well, I got to clean the house and I got to make sure all the food's done. But now my husband and I were talking about it the other day. My work schedule is more because now I have to manage my online presence. I'm meeting with clients. I have to create sales funnels. I have to write all those emails. And I was wasting a lot of brain space on food. So I was like, I just don't want to figure this out anymore. And if I could have one thing in the world, I would have someone make me food. I would love them forever. And then it dawned on me, hey, that kind of thing does exist. And then I was like, okay. So if I want to delegate out that task, I have to look at what's at stake. So how much am I spending on groceries? How much am I spending on going out because I didn't remember to pull anything out of the freezer or I'm brain fried or whatever? What does that look like? Well, that's a substantial amount of money. And the time it takes for me to do that.
Yeah, and the energy. Because there are things in our life that are energy drains. They suck the energy from us.
I had my house cleaned for the first time. And that really hit me hard. Like, oh, I am so lazy. Oh, I'm just lazy. I can't care enough about my baseboards to cover it. And I looked at, okay, how much time do I spend avoiding cleaning? You know, how much is it going to cost? I had someone come in. She's a local business owner. She brought 2 other girls with her. They spent an hour and a half in my home, which means they spent like, 4.5 man hours. And they're professionals. So for me, it'd probably be more like 8 hours. They came in, they cleared out my cobwebs. They wiped down my doors. They cleaned my floor. They cleaned my bathroom, which I hate. And I was like, this is amazing. And you know what I did? I sat outside on my porch and I actually did a little bit of work on my sales funnel. Nice. I was like, this is the best. And I wasn't going to tell myself a funny story. Sometimes when you delegate, you have to find safe places to tell people about your delegation. So I had told a couple people, and I had told the cleaners, please don't clean my husband's desk. And he's very, very particular about his things. And I don't plan on telling him for a little bit about this until I feel comfortable with it.
Right.
So, of course, they had cleaned his desk. It looked very nice. And they leave, and I walk in, and I was like, oh, no. So my husband gets home, and I'm like, oh, no. And he doesn't notice it right at first. And then right before we go to bed, he's like, Shannon? Yes, darling. It's like, did you clean my desk? And I was like, your desk got cleaned, yeah? Like,
good reframe.
What's going on? And I was like, well, so I had people come in, and then I tried to explain it around, like, the cost. Like, well, for per man hours, blah, blah, blah. Instead of going at it like, and I feel so good. Now that the house is clean, like, I feel so much better. This is so cool. I feel good about this decision. And he was like, I don't care about the money. I don't want people touching my stuff. And that was his concern. And then later it was like, oh, people know how, like, slovenly I am. I'm like, you're not the slovenly one. I'm the slovenly one. That's why I felt guilty about it. I'm a messy human. And so delegating those 2 tasks, I have manifested so much. I'm crazy sure that this interview is a part of that. I cleaned up my energy. I got rid of things. I went to an event and made amazing connections. I've got big things on the horizon because I went through and I cleaned up my energy and I delegated those sorts of tasks. So those are tasks that you can do in your life. If they're draining a lot of time and energy, there are other things in your business. And really, it's start by delegating one thing, and it's something that is not super, super important. I guess that's my key to learning how to delegate is you don't start with the big, huge things. You don't delegate all of your copy and your website and all of your images and then have your clone run your business. That's not what you do. You start with something that's a little bit of a stretch, but if it doesn't work out, it's not going to tank you. So if the cleaners didn't work out, no big deal. Life will go on.
Yeah.
If food doesn't work out, no big deal. Life will go on.
Yeah.
So that's my keys to delegation.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I think that a big piece is, and you kind of touched on this, is about the permission. And, especially if you have a partner. And it's like we have to, or we feel like we need to rationalize our decisions, or especially in the dollar and cents piece. So,
no. And if you can get excited about it before you share with your partner, always better. Always better. Don't go in like, sorry, I kind of want to just be like, I feel so good. This is the choice I made.
Well, and, if the shoe was on the other foot, if they were the one responsible for doing those things, then they might choose differently.
Yeah. And that's what I told my husband when we were talking about the food. I was like, well, if you want to become responsible for all the food, and he just looked at me like, really? I was like, me either. Yeah. I love you.
Yeah.
And look, I had her make something with shrimp for you.
So I have this theory on free stuff. Oh, there's so much free stuff out there. And there's been this trend about give away your best stuff. Put it out there. And I don't know how you feel, but I feel like we've gotten to a place where we've ended up devaluing what we put out there, and we've really cluttered the world with all this stuff. Yeah. What is your thought on that?
So here's where I think it all has gone wrong. Your best stuff, again, if we go back to that concept of 100% transformation, that's not what free is for. Free is for your first half a step. Free is for the introduction to a concept. It's meeting people where they are, not force feeding them where you want them to go. And so with these freebies and all of that stuff, we hoard them and then we don't do anything with them. And you need equal buy-in. So I'm not going to knock a freebie. When I first started, I would not have been nearly as successful as I was without good free content. But that good free content gave me the first half step, maybe step. And then after that, it was paid content. And I took those first half steps, and then I took my first half steps with all of the other pieces. And then from there, I could invest. Because you need equal buy-in. It's one of the things that makes me crazy, especially in the business world and being online, is we join these masterminds because we want the community, we want the support, and we just can't afford to pay for it. And then we don't have equal buy-in. If I'm really, really excited, I'm going to become really, really obnoxious to other people who are not as excited. And then that pulls with my energy, that messes with my head. So free content has its place, but very, very specific. And I know that I fell into this trap that give away your best stuff. I was doing 2-hour calls with people because I read in a book how much greatness that would bring. And you know what? That was a lot of fun. But I was still pretending in my business. I was still seeing if this is what I wanted to do. So those 2-hour conversations were great. They were fun. They provided transformation. But I was still pretending. I was still playing. And that's okay, because that's where I was. And it wasn't until I was booked out and didn't have time to play like that anymore and had these amazing opportunities showing up in my inbox that I was like, I can't play anymore. I need to be serious. Like, no more trying to like piece it all together. And that's when I started really investing in my own transformation. That's when I started putting money out there. Like, okay, I'm not going to do this freebie and half do it. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is because I need equal buy-in. I need the people around me to be up to the same kind of big stuff that I am. And that requires buy-in. And so every once in a while, I will run into a free thing where you get that, and that's awesome. But that's not the place for me because I don't need to be taking up that space anymore. I'm so fortunate. Like, I'm the luckiest person in the world that I don't have to have a spot in that free space where all of that is happening. I can happily point people to that, who need that, and who are ready for that. And I get to turn around and reinvest in amazing coaches and amazing experiences. And then I get to take all of that knowledge, because one of my superpowers is taking knowledge, synthesizing it, and then looking at someone and saying, oh, you need this piece over here. Here you go. Here's that one piece. You don't need everything that I experienced in that. You need this one starting place. Mm-hmm. Or here's that step that you're missing. It's this piece over here. Here you go.
Yeah.
And that takes expertise and buy-in that you don't see, because people are trying too hard to force feed transformation, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and one of the things we learned is in therapist training, that you can't do the work for the client, right. That they have to be invested as much or more than you in their transformational process, or whatever it is that thing that is that they're receiving.
Yeah.
So you have something that you're going to share with the Academy members. So tell us what that is.
So again, meeting people where they are. So a lot of times with these freebies, they give too much. So what I'm giving to the Academy members is super, super simple. It's a space to find approved breaks. So when you're it's one sheet that you print off. So please print off like 3 of them and use them. But there's a space for you to write down your approved break activities. What does a break look like? Even if it's something like doing the dishes, if you relabel that as an approved break, that's where transformation happens. And then once you have done and completed that break, there's a space for you to write down what came to mind. Like, what did you realize? What clicked into place for you? So you can document it and then set it aside. So your breaks allow you that integration time, and then you have a place to put all of your thoughts. So that way you don't have to worry about thinking about them later or thinking you have to do something with them right away. It's on your sheet. Mm-hmm. You can come back later. So that's what I gave the Academy members, because that's really an easy first step. You can do it several times a day, but really print it out, write it out. Don't do it on your phone. The brain psychology of writing things out is really, really good for you. So do it, print it, and do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love the integration piece, because that is what this show is all about, is taking what people see and what they hear on the show and actually implementing it in their own life, because that is where the change happens. And so I love that. And then also the other piece about what is it that you get from writing these, or when you're in process of doing those approved activities, because as we all have experienced in the shower, that we get downloads, we get inspiration, and I think that that's a great idea to make sure to come back and say, what is it what was coming to me as I was in this experience. And I can also see how there might be times when we realize that we shouldn't be doing something. Like, oh, this is something I should be delegating. So,
yeah.
So many great pieces to that. So awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Shannon, for joining me today. This was an incredible discussion, and yeah, I can't wait. I definitely need your help. I need to work with you, girl.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, so thank you.
And I fully give you permission to need that, because I've got girls in my army who do the same thing for me. So,
yeah.
There we go.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Awakened Goddess Show. I hope you enjoyed today's guest and got something you can start using in your life right away. For more spiritual insights and to listen to more episodes, subscribe to The Awakened Goddess Show at theawakenedgoddess.com and discover wisdom that'll change your life.